Hello everyone, this is Caleb Simpson, and you are watching my walkthrough for The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild for Nintendo Wii U and Switch. In this video, we're continuing our circuit of Hyrule, just getting all these strategic warp points and gaining access to every corner of Hyrule by getting the most useful warp points in the game, in my opinion. So, to that end, in this video what we're going to be doing is working our way towards Wasteland Tower and Gerudo Tower. To that end, I recommend that you warp to the Kainamut Shrine here on the Great Plateau, and then you can work your way west. Now what you can do too is just use your scope by pressing in on the right analog stick so that you can zoom in, and then you can place a pin with the A button on the tower itself. So that way, even though we're like sailing through the dark and stuff, you can still see over here very nicely. So what I recommend you do is there is like these two, like, I'm not even sure how to explain this. There's like this mountain tip that just from the north working its way south, you can go here, and then there's another one that's just to the left of that. So if you go to each one of these, you can then very easily work your way over towards the tower. This is the easiest way to get there so you can keep your height as opposed to climbing from the very bottom. It's just some of these cliff sides are very steep. So if you go from here, you can easily make your way over there, and it's not too bad. So I think this is probably the easiest path in general to reach it. Along the way, you may even see some Swift Violet, so I would recommend you grab them if they're convenient anyways. If they're super far out of the way, I wouldn't bother with it. It's just not worth it. We can get a whole bunch later on, but just as long as you're passing through, you might as well grab some if they're along your path. Now, for this next section, there is a whole bunch of these wooden platforms, and they're very easy to land on, so you can get your stamina up and everything. It's great. And you can follow the obvious path if you want to, and it's pretty easy. There's several, like, Bokoblin along the way, but they're not too bad. Fun fact about this area, too, is this is a really easy spot to use a Blizzard Rod, and then you can freeze the enemies and just, like, walk into them with your body, and you can knock them off the ledge, and they'll land and then shatter on the ground. It's kind of fun to do so, although at that point, then they're way down below, and then you can't get their goodies because they're down too far where you can't get them. So it does kind of defeat the purpose of defeating them in the first place, so you can just kind of ignore them instead if you like. Now, as far as this area goes, you can just continue climbing the stone wall if you want to, or you can follow the series of ladders. There's no particular reason to do so, I'm just mentioning it as an option. So if you are worried about climbing or you don't want to use all the stamina to do so, then you can use the ladders instead, and it works pretty well. Now, there isn't exactly a road or anything, but this path is kind of nice because there's not very many enemies, and the path is pretty obvious. Like, it's not a road or anything, but it is kind of like a breadcrumb trail of like methods to get up there, I guess is the best way to say it. So I find it kind of nice because it's not too hard. There's just not a lot of threat along the way, but you can easily get up there, because one of the problems with going in this area in general is it feels like most of the paths end up taking tons and tons of stamina, but this path does not. So if you don't have as many stamina upgrades as I do, this is a pretty solid way to get up here. Eventually you'll reach this plateau where there is like a pool of water, and there's a bunch of electric enemies here. In particular, there are electric keys as well as yellow Lizalfos. The yellow Lizalfos in particular I think are worth noting because you can get yellow Lizalfos tails from them. So just note that, because the tower here is pretty close, and you can just sail north and then kill these two yellow Lizalfos and get them pretty easily. And so that's just something to note. I don't think it's like the best place to farm for them in general, but it is just worth noting because yellow Lizalfos are so rare. You don't see them very often, so just kind of a nice place to go. Also, this place has some hardy durians, I believe, off the top of my head, and there's also some fairies here, which is interesting too. I'm not really sure why. I think this is one of the only places in the game where there happens to be fairies other than a fairy fountain. So that's interesting. And again, I think that the fairies will only appear if you still need some. Like, if you are already full on fairies, then there won't be any here, but this pool also has fairies, which is interesting. Up ahead, there is an enemy encampment, and they do have some yellow chew in the midst of them. I don't really super think that elemental chews are worth killing in general. You can get their chew jelly if you want to, but it doesn't really matter too much. We can change their element to whatever we want, so it's kind of like whatever. But I did get quite a few of it in just that one like attack, so it was worth it in my opinion. The other thing I think is really fun about it though is the fact that by killing them, it causes a like shockwave electricity that will knock out all of the black Bokoblins as well, which is just fun. The fact that you can even do that is cool. So I think it's like worth doing as long as we're passing through, and go ahead and grab the chew jelly. As far as the encampment itself, if you kill them all, then the skull chest will then give you a topaz. I don't think it's super worth it, but you can totally come back here, especially if you're wanting to hunt topaz. This is a guaranteed one, so if you want to come back every blood moon, that's an option for you. The camp is pretty easy. I just don't really think it's worth our time. Anyways, continue on towards the south, and you'll eventually reach the Wasteland Tower. Now, before we continue on much further, it is worth noting that there are two metal chests that are in the tar, so you can use Magnesis to grab them. But yeah, they contain a sapphire and 5 bomb arrows, so you should go ahead and grab those because those are pretty valuable. The sapphire is worth 260 rupees. Actually, can't think off the top of my head how much the bomb arrows are worth, but whatever. It's a pretty decent amount of money, so I think those are worthwhile. I don't like to go super far out of my way to get most chests, but these ones are pretty valuable, so I think it's worth your time. What happened, though, is I was distracted because of all the enemies, and then I ended up, like, because I needed to kill them in order to change the time of day, and then I was sort of dumb. Like, I was trying to change the time of day so I didn't have to deal with them, but I need to deal with them in order to change the time of day so that I don't have to deal with them. It's just like this irritating chicken and the egg conundrum. Anyway, I just explained all that to say that I got distracted by it, so I was focusing on the enemies, and as a result, I forgot all about the chest, which was the whole reason why I was doing it, you know? Kind of defeated the purpose. Anyways, after you've defeated them or whatever, if it's night for you anyways, then make it day, and then we're trying to get to the tower. Now, the funny thing to know about this tower is that there is wind that will blow you around if you get too close to the tower. So as you start getting close to it, in the air anyways, then wind will start blowing you to the north. So in order to reach the tower, the problem is if you come from any other direction, then it makes it really hard to get to. It is possible, but it's pretty awful. So what you want to do is get to the south, and then you want to sail to it from there. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can climb the nearby cliff and then just like kind of start sailing north, but then like lean really far to the east, and then as a result you can get to the tower that way. So that's one potential option. I think overall it's easier to just make a tower out of the metal blocks. There's some of them that are in the tar that you can grab as well, and there's also some on land. So just grab a whole bunch of them, and you can make yourself a tower. You can actually make several towers in the tar itself. The problem is the land is like slanted under the tar too, so you can do that, and that will work. However, it is kind of awkward. So you can make a series of towers or whatever, just like in the tar. So you make like 3 of them or 4 of them, and then what'll happen is then you'll be able to climb, like jump from one to the other, and that's fine. I think overall it's probably easier to simply just like make a big tower to the south, and then you can climb on top of that. Because the funny things about these metal ones is that a lot of people probably don't realize is you can climb them. You can climb them just like a regular rock face. There's no particular reason to try and make a whole bunch of them and try to only stand on the top of them, because you can climb the sides of them too. So instead, just make one really big tower, make it like, you know, 5 or 6 or even 7 blocks tall, and you can just climb it and you can just go. It's not a problem at all. So that's actually the easiest way to do this by far. Just make a big tower south of the tower we're trying to reach, and then that way you can then sail to the north. The wind will then blow you into it anyways, because you're getting close, and the wind will gust you around as is, so you don't have to, that'll like add to your momentum, you know? So even though you're really far away, it doesn't matter because the wind's going to blow you that direction anyway. Wasteland Tower! So this guy is a little bit weird. By the way, just quick note, Gerudo Desert is Wasteland Tower. However, Gerudo Tower is Gerudo Highlands, which is all snowy mountain area, which doesn't make any sense to me. Gerudo has always been deserty stuff in all the Zelda games. I don't know why. It's just weird. Why is Gerudo Tower for not desert? Doesn't make any sense to me. Anyways, Wasteland Tower is all the desert stuff. So, Wasteland encompasses this small mountain range over here to the south, and then it kind of cuts across, like, right here, I think, actually. And then it finally goes up, cuts across right here. Then it does this weird little thing. Carusa Valley, which is actually going up through here, is actually part of that too. So, it's kind of weird because there's like some upper areas that are frosty, and then the lower areas are all desert. So anyways, Wasteland encompasses this part of the map as well, and it goes up here a little ways. Then it finally cuts across, bam, and it's everything in the whole bottom left corner. So that's all the Gerudo Desert stuff is Wasteland Tower and this little mountain. Meanwhile, all this is all Gerudo Tower. Okay, so Wasteland, what are the cool things to pin here? I suppose the first thing to point out is the Great Fairy. Now, it's in the far bottom left corner. It's just at this giant dragon skeleton. Super easy to find. Quick comment on how to get to it is I would recommend you use a pin. The reason for this is because this whole bottom left corner is in a sandstorm. I think it's just like that until you defeat the boss, if I remember correctly. And once you defeat the boss, the sandstorm's gone. Regardless, I would recommend you unlock this as soon as possible. Both so we have a nice warp point so that you can farm some stuff here, but also so once you have enough rupees, you can purchase this chick, and then you'll have access to upgrading your armor to a higher tier, which is great. Now, this area has Saflinas, just so you know. Oh yeah, by the way, I should finish talking about this. So, a pin here. It's in a sandstorm, so you can't see. So, if you come to Gerudo Town, and then you warp here, and then use the sand seal, and you're like, meh, then you can go through here. Once you get into the sandstorm, you can't see anything. You can just keep going straight. And that's fine if you're pointing in the right direction, you'll figure it out, whatever. But I like having a pin because even though your map doesn't work and your mini-map is all grayed out and you can't see what's going on, I think you can't even see compass directions very well with that. You can point in the right direction and guarantee that you're going to arrive properly so that you can get the shrine. So yeah, that's my reasoning. So I'd recommend you just put a pin, you have access to your map, you place a pin here ahead of time, write a seal over here, bam, and you get the warp point. Awesome. Once you have enough rupees, go ahead and purchase the Great Fairy, buy her outright or whatever. This place has Saflinas, going back to what I was saying earlier. Saflinas are like low-tier elemental stuff, so there is warm, cold, and electric Saflinas here. Just a little bit, just a little spattering of them, so if you need them for something, that's fine. You can also use them as supplemental ingredients, because a lot of recipes are like, if you have 4 tier 2 ingredients and 1 tier 1 ingredient, That's all you need. Or say like 2 tier 3 ingredients and 3 tier 1 ingredients, you can make a level 3 dish, for example. So there's stuff like that you can do. So you can use them as supplemental ingredients. Now, I don't really think Saflinas are super worth your time in general, but just as a comment, if you warp here, you're like, get all the Saflinas and get the 4 Endura carrots. Most of the other Great Fairy Fountains have 3 Endura carrots, and the shrine is pretty far away, so you have to like run a distance to even get to the Great Fairy Fountain or sail to it to get to where the Endura carrots are, and there's only 3 of them. Here, there's 4 of them, and they're right next to the shrine, so you're like, boop, and you're like, and you get more of them fast. You can get the Saflinas while you're at it, and it's just nice. Like, it's such a nice farming location. Like, the amount of material here isn't all that great, but the materials that are here, well, the Endura carrots anyways, those are the best enduring ingredients in the game. So this is just a really sweet spot for that. But anyways, it's just like, it's so fast. So you come here every blood moon and it's awesome. So yeah, I really recommend this as a farming location in general. Other things here in Wasteland, I think the most notable thing probably is going to be the rare talus that's way over here. It's a little ways away. You go here and you sail over here, you can grab this. Some of the rare talus I don't really think are super worth a pin because they're too hard to get to. It just takes too long. And I feel like if you kill like 4 or 5 of them every blood moon, like then you get a pretty good amount of gems. So I feel like that's the most efficient ones. So this one I think is worth a pin. It's not like the best one in the world, but it's pretty good. So it's just on the cliffside here, but there you go. So you can get that guy to hunt for some diamonds, rubies, and sapphires. There is also, also another comment. Some of the rare talus are more awkward than others because their gem that is their vulnerable spot is in more awkward positions than others. So some of them are harder. This one's pretty easy is one of the comments I would have about that. So it's easy to get to. There's not really a lot of enemies along the way. I think there's a few electric shoes here, but they're not a big deal. Just blow them up with bombs, whatever, and keep going. There is, by the way, a luminous talus right here that drops luminous stone. I don't think that's a very good way of getting luminous stone in general. I think technically this is part of Gerudo. Maybe it's in the black for you right now. I don't know. Whatever. You can mark that if you want to. I don't think that's worth mentioning. Yeah, I don't think it's a good farming spot. Kind of the only other things worth noting, I'll talk about Moldugas here in a second. We'll end with that. The only like super notable things here is kind of like there's a couple goodies throughout here, like Electric Saflina in particular, I guess, you can find some here. There's a Volt Shroom in particular going like this, and then going up here towards West Gerudo Ruins. There's a bunch of them here. That's probably the most concentrated place in general here in Gerudo Desert. So if you get a bunch of those and you come back the next blood moon and just go and get all those again, super easy. Other thing worth noting is this Gerudo Desert is definitely the best total number of yellow Lizalfos, the electric ones. And they are located, the easiest ones are actually right here. So you go to Wasteland Tower and go north to this like little pool here, and there's like one here and one here, something like that. Kill them really easily. Run away. There's a couple like just kind of through here. That's okay. Otherwise, there's a bunch kind of like, it does kind of a similar pattern to what this was, but with the Volt Shrooms, or Volt Fruit, but it goes more like this, a little bit further to the west. And there's like one here, 2 here, like 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, and they're all kind of like under the sand. But they'll jump up as soon as they see you. But yeah, a yellow Lizalfos that you can get the yellow Lizalfos tails from. So those are kind of hard to find, so that's a great place to go. So you're like, and just get a whole bunch of them all in one shot. All right, let's talk about Moldugas. Moldugas are a pain. They're one of the harder enemies. Kind of. They're pretty easy to counter once you kind of know how they work. It's not a big deal. They do hurt pretty bad, though, so don't attack them unless you got a decent amount of armor first would be my recommendation. But use bombs or bomb arrows would be my recommendation. If you have a lot of bomb arrows, you can destroy these guys so hard. One comment about that, too, by the way. Bomb arrows are, like, a really good way of, like, stunning them. Like, getting it started anyways. You can use a bomb arrow and then, like, just wait for them to jump out of the sand or whatever and shoot them with a bomb arrow. That's one way to do that. And you just guarantee that you stun them, and then you can run forward and attack them. But yeah, try to get to high ground, and then you can just throw a bomb off it, wait for them to swallow it up, hold still, wait for them to swallow it up, use the bomb, boom. Anyways, Molduga, you kill them to get the ingredients you need for the sand boots, and for the radiant set in particular would be my recommendation. So, Molduga parts are great for that. Now, what I'm going to do is they're kind of, if you want to farm them, it's kind of nice to get all 4 of them just in quick succession. So I'm just going to zoom in on their locations. So first of all, off to the left, Taruma Dunes, pretty easy to find. I think this title is automatically unlocked once you get the Wasteland Tower. I'm not actually 100% sure about that. It might not even appear until after you've explored it. Anyways, these 4 little nubs here, or whatever, on the map, this is where it is. So there's a shrine here that after you have killed the Molduga the first time. But anyways, if you want to farm them, this is the easiest one to get by far, because you're like, bloop, and you can do it every blood moon and get some parts. So if you're not in a hurry, that's the easiest one to get. Other ones, this one is the hardest one to find. It's just to the left of this little triangular hill, so just west of Gerudo Town. There's some skeletons here. There's a triangle mound, and then it's just to the left of that. Down here at Arbiter's Grounds, if you don't have the title here yet, then just note this, like, this outline here or whatever. Just the shape of that. This is where it's located. So that's the easiest way to find that one. Southern Oasis. Again, if you don't have the title, there's this, like, mound here with all these trees and all these, like, stone outcroppings right here. And it's just to the left inside this dark area is where this particular Molduga is located. But yeah, so ideally what you do is you warp here and you're like, bam, 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 you just get all these guys in quick succession, and there you go. Whole bunch of Molduga parts. And that's pretty much it as far as things to know here. As a comment, Gerudo Town has access to the most armor pieces in the entire game. There's a few, like, single pieces. There's also a bunch of, like, circlets that you can get as well, which, by the way, I think the amber one is probably the most valuable overall, or, like, it's the cheapest. So if you're not going to be selling your ambers, that's one potential option if you want just a regular armor option. In general, I think that's bad, but if you're getting a whole bunch of them because you've been attacking veins, or you're trying to get luminous stuff, then it's a nice alternative because it's a high amount of armor. But anyways, yeah, there's a whole bunch of armor pieces here. So if you're trying to figure out, you're like, I really like getting armor pieces, just getting them initially, then Gerudo Town's the place to go. Also, there's a pretty good shop here for arrows as well. So I would recommend that. This general store is awesome for that. But yeah, that's Wasteland. Next, face towards the west, and you can see just the top of the Gerudo Tower in the distance. So press down on the right analog stick to zoom in, and you can place a pin on it. And so it's just the very top of it. You can't actually see the glowy portions of it from this position. It's just past this top of this hill. And what it'll do is it'll place a pin in the dark over in the Gerudo Highlands area. So if you look on your map, it'll be just north of this little, like, stone outcropping thing that, like, sticks out in the bottom right. So just north of that is where the tower is. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow this path where we're just, like, sailing to the west and trying to get on top of this big mountain that's really, really tall, because there's actually a really nice place where you can run here, and I think most players don't realize this is even here. And this is, in my opinion, the fastest and easiest way to get to Gerudo Tower. Other than that, I would say going to Kuh Takkar, which I will be showing that later on in this video, is how to get to there. But that would be the other alternative. This way, or coming from Kuh Takkar, would be the two best ways to get to Gerudo Tower, in my opinion. The biggest challenge with Gerudo Tower is the fact that it's really, really tall. So in order to not use tons and tons of stamina, you can start climbing near the bottom if you want to, but then you're eating tons of stamina food just to recover it as you're climbing. It takes a whole bunch of it, which we can afford to do so because we have so many stamina dishes if you've been following along with me. But otherwise, what you're doing is you're climbing this spiral staircase, basically, that goes all the way around the whole Gerudo area right here, and then you're fighting your way through enemies and stuff, and you can do that if you want to. They're basically the things to know about that. There's some, like, rolling boulders of death. There's some, I think there's even some Octoroks, but otherwise there's Bokoblins and Moblins that have, like, shock arrows and stuff and bomb arrows. It's just kind of awful. So you can sneak through there or, like, just go in guns blazing, and you could totally do that and it's fine. But like I say, the whole point of trying to get to Gerudo Tower is ideally trying to get as much elevation as possible. So the nice thing about taking the southern path along the icy mountain is we actually have enough elevation to reach one of the lower platforms of the tower itself. So you don't have to climb the entire distance. You can recover your stamina here. So it's amazing. And that only requires like 3/4 of a stamina wheel to even get here, which is crazy. That's like nothing compared to the other methods. So I just think this path is way easier than any other thing you could do. So you could totally take it the hard way and go the long way if you want to. I don't really have any particular advice for that. It's just a bunch of Moblins and Bokoblins and stuff. So like just save and load a bunch and don't die. So if you want to take that path, you can, but I would highly recommend this method because it's way faster and easier. Gerudo Tower! Not a desert, which doesn't make any sense to me. Gerudo words are only supposed to be deserty things. Whatever, here we go. So, Gerudo Highlands. What are things worth pinning here? So, I guess first of all, let's talk about Talus. There's a rare Talus here. This one's pretty easy, actually. It's not that hard to fight. It is in the snow, so you do walk kind of slowly. Basically, just going to Kuh Takkar is probably your easiest bet, and then run across here. You can't take a horse or anything. It's actually a lot farther than it looks because you move slower on snow defaultly, so it is a little bit awkward. So I think this one's worth a pin. Not necessarily my first choice for a rare Talus, but it is pretty, again, it's an easy one, so whatever. But yeah, I would pin that guy. Now these other ones, again, you only have a limited number of pins, so I don't think these ones are worth it, but just as far as honorable mentions, there is a luminous Talus here. But I think there's much better ways to get luminous ones, and this one's really far out of the way, and I don't think it's worth it. Grab it if you want. There's a frost Talus here, and also up here. Now, even though this one is next to the shrine, you still have to climb or use, like, it's actually, this is really, really steep, so I don't think this is super great. Other places that are worth noting, though, is, actually, a quick comment, by the way. Up here, I think, maybe I'm thinking of this one. This one, I think, has a bunch of enemies with the frost spears, whatever they're called. Frost spears? Yeah. So there's frost spears here, but it's kind of far out of the way, so I don't think that one is super worthwhile. I think the ones up in Hebra are easier to get to. So in particular, over here, next, just to the left of Gerudo Village, and also up here is a pretty good spot, in my opinion. Once you get this, is it right here or something like that, or right there, the shrine here, you just sail over. This is all downhill, so you just sail here, land there, boom, and then you can attack them. Meanwhile, like down here, the problem is you have to like, you go to this shrine and you're like going all the way up here and you're working your way past boulders and there's a bunch of Lizalfos and stuff. It's just a pain. Then you finally get here and then you're like, there's a bunch of other obstacles here too. It's just a pain. It takes a long time to do that. So anyways, other things worth noting. Other terrible locations here. I think this item is terrible, but I know a lot of people really like them. So Lizal, try boomerangs. Best boomerang item of that category, other than Amiibo anyways, that you can farm is up here in Rusoka Snowfield. So if you warp to the Kemikosa Shrine, you can kill these guys, these icy Lizalfos, with any fire weapon. So you just smack them with it, boom, they die instantaneously, and you grab their Lizal Tri-Boomerang. So there's a couple of them, they're scattered away. There's like one there, one here, one here, one here, or whatever. They're just all over the place. They're kind of far apart, so it's really easy to single them out and kill them. So you can grab them, just run through here, get a whole bunch of them, run away. But the best place in the game in general by far is this one. I want to say there's 5 of them, or maybe just 3. I don't know. Whatever, there's a bunch of Lizal Tri-Boomerangs here. There's also, I want to say 8 icy keys. So run forward, like taunt those guys out to follow you, kill them with bombs or whatever, so the icy keys die. Grab all their icy keys wings, and then these guys, you can, again, you smack them with a fire weapon, they die instantaneously, you get their Lizal Tri-Boomerangs. I'm pretty sure all these are icy. Some of them might just be black Lizalfos. I think these are all icy though. So anyways, or icy breath Lizalfos, whatever you want to call them, that's their technical name. So kill them all, boom, you can get, like, I don't know, if you get all of them in the Rusoka Snowfields in one Blood Moon, you get something crazy like 10 of them or 12 of them or something like that. It's crazy. So if you really, really like the boomerang weapons, then this is the place to go. In general, I think it's kind of a garbage item, so I don't think it's a good weapon, but you grab them if you want. Okay, over here. This spot right here is a pretty cool cave. I was really excited about this when I first saw it, but since then I kind of just feel like it's an okay farming spot. But yeah, once you have access to Gerudo Tower, to sail north, you'll start climbing the last little bit, whoop, and hop up here. There's some rocks here blocking a cave. Now you can either stasis it and smack it with weapons to knock the boulders out of the way. You can go inside. Otherwise, up above there is a metal boulder. So grab it with magnesis, take it down, use it to push it into the rocks to knock them out of the way. Inside, there's a bunch of chests that contain goodies. The first time is definitely worth it to get all those chests. After that, there are some weapons that always reappear. There's some Gerudo tier weapons. So there is a Gerudo spear, a Gerudo bow, and I think a shield, and there's something else, a radiant shield, and there's also, I think, a scimitar or something like that, or just a Gerudo sword, whatever, the lower tier one. Anyways, all the weapons here are kind of bad. They're not actually all that great. And there's also a Edge of Duality. Now, Edge of Dualities are pretty cool. They're actually fairly rare, and they're kind of hard to find, but they're just not as good as Royal Claymores. Royal Claymores do 2 more damage, and they have more durability, so they last longer. So, and a lot of the Royal Claymores in the game are easier to get. So, like, sure, you can do this, you can warp here, you can grab the boulder and then put it down and push it out of the way and then finally grab that, or you can just warp to this tower over in Woodland, climb on top and grab the Royal Claymore. Like, it's just instant. Like, I don't know, 10 seconds versus spending like 2 minutes getting this. It's just not worth it in comparison. It's just, this is bad. So, and it does less damage and it doesn't last as long. It's just, it really goes out of your way. I think the first time you come here, too, there's some arrows on the ground is one of the other nice things. I think, off the top of my head. I might be mistaken about that. Anyways, overall, I feel like this farming location, as far as farming anyways, is just kind of okay, is my new sentiment as I've played through the game multiple times. At first, I thought this spot was awesome, and I was like, yeah, but there's just better items other places. So yeah, between an Edge of Duality and a Royal Claymore, I'd take a Royal Claymore any day. Now, other notable things here. I think the other most notable pin, again, I think good farming locations are next to a shrine, or they're fast anyways. Either, if you're going to go a distance, ideally you're getting multiple items. So this, so I think this is worthwhile, for example, just because you're getting multiple really high-end gems. If you were just getting one, I don't think it'd be worth it. This guy, so this is the location of a Dragon Bone Moblin Club. If you're going for a bone spec, I think this is the second best place in the game to get them. There's just some leaning up against some logs here. I think there's 1 or maybe 2. Maybe there's 1 Dragon Bone Moblin Club and there's a couple Dragon Bone Boko clubs. The lower tier ones, the single one-handers. But yeah, the two-hander is really the good one. So anyways, there's some black Lizalfos here. I think they're not icy, if I remember correctly. Anyways, you can warp here, and you can just run over here, or like get over here, like, and then just sail down. And they're like, huh? And before they can really get there in time, you land here, pick it up, then warp away. So you just grab the item, run away. It's awesome. I don't think these guys are worth fighting at all, but there you go. Now, one other quick mention here, I don't think this is worth it, but I know a lot of people like to do this, is at the Kuh Takkar shrine, there is 2 Wizrobes that have ice rods here. And so a lot of people like to like warp here, and they kill those guys because it's so fast. You just warp here and you're like, bam, bam, with fire arrows, or you throw down some wood, light your regular arrows on it to set it on fire, and then shoot him with that, then you light another regular arrow, shoot the other guy, boom. You're like, 2 ice rods instantaneously, and you warp away. It's just so fast because it's right next to the shrine, so the people love it. But in general, if you're going to do that, I still think it's better to get some blizzard rods. Like, there's no reason not to do that. So you warp to the Namaka Oz, go right here, kill this Blizzrobe, same method. You just, boom, one-shot him, and then you grab the blizzard rod. And then same thing up here. You go up to, whatever it's called, Gomasog. And then right here, there's another blizzard rod with a Blizzrobe. So kill him with 1 fire weapon or whatever, 1 fire arrow, whatever. Boom, you get a blizzard rod. So I would rather do that than do ice rods. And, but yeah, if you want to do ice rods, those are here as well. So I just kind of am mentioning that as an honorable mention because I know it's something that people really like. I don't personally think that's super worth it. Although, if you want to stop freezing your horse, like I keep doing, then maybe that could be an option for you, I guess. So there you go. There's Gerudo Tower. So before we move on, there is one more warp point that I'd recommend you grab real quick, and that is the Kuh Takkar Shrine. This is like probably the best like overall warp point for the Gerudo Highlands in general, in my opinion. It's just the most versatile. It's kind of in the middle of the whole area, just in generally speaking. So from there you can go anywhere else. And there's also some really good farming things we can grab there as well. So it's a very nice place to have because every blood moon you can swing on by and grab some things if you want. So to do that, what I recommend you do is you want to go along the top from the Gerudo Tower, if you came from this direction anyways, and then you can continue on towards the like northwest, and then finally continue on towards the northeast. And it's actually really straightforward from here. You just follow the path, like, I don't know, it's just all a bunch of flat land, and there's not really that many enemies around. There's a few, like, Ice Breath Lizalfos, and so you want to just use a fire weapon, you can kill them instantly. But that's the only threat along the way, basically. Just kill the wolves along the way, go ahead and break some of the veins for some extra flint and, like, gems and stuff if you want to. Either if you see some convenient Swift Violet, then grab those. But other than that, like, there's not really anything else worth pointing out. Their enemies are really easy. There's some wolves, there's some of those Icy Breath Lizalfos, which, again, can be killed instantaneously with a fire weapon. So this area is super great. Also, the fact that coming from this direction, you're basically just going downhill the entire time, so there's not a lot of climbing involved. You just walk right up to it. You're going to need some, chill resistance just to survive once you get to the icy portion, but other than that, it's like super easy. Once you get close, there is an enemy encampment off to the right, so I'm actually going to just climb up this nearby hill just to avoid it, and then continuing on towards the shrine. Now, it is encased in ice, and there are some blue Wizrobes that are here. Now, what I recommend you do is just throw down some wood and light it on fire, because this will steadily melt the ice, and as long as that's melting, you can also just use that campfire with regular arrows to light the tips of your arrows and kill the Wizrobes really easily. This way you're saving some of your fire arrows. You don't have to waste them, because you can just use the cheaper arrows instead, and you might as well. So, this is a great way to kill them, and as I mentioned a little bit ago, this is a great place to farm for regular ice rods. Ice rods are cheaper, they only attack one target, so if you specifically don't want the area of effect, then this could be a nice alternative for that particular weapon type for you. One of the things I love about this shrine is the fact that right behind it there is 6 veins of the luminous stone, which is great, so you don't have to travel very far for it. Like, a lot of luminous stone is kind of far away, like you warp to a shrine and then you gotta travel for a ways, and you get like, you get 2 here, you get like 4 there, or whatever, and it's nice and everything, but this one has 6 of them, which is a pretty decent amount anyway, but then on top of that, it's just right next to a shrine. It's so close. So if you come back every blood moon, you can just get a whole bunch of luminous stone, which is wonderful. Quick comments about stuff that's happening on screen is you may have to toss some more wood down as the ice gets more melty, then it will eventually get to the point where it's too far away from the wood. And as long as you place your new wood close enough, then the previous wood will light that on fire too, so you don't have to whip out your fire weapon again. Another comment is that the arrow tips only stay lit for a little bit, so you are going to have to relight your arrow on the campfire repeatedly if you are taking too long to kill the Wizrobe. So now for myself personally, I'm not going to actually complete this shrine at this exact time because I remember that this shrine had some tricks that I could use the Flamebreaker armor to walk through fire with, and I wanted to show that, and I thought that'd be kind of cool, but I don't have that upgraded yet. So I'm going to hold off on this shrine for now. You can totally do this if you want to. So now, a quick comment before we leave Kuh Takkar. Again, I think this is like one of the best warp points that you can can have up here in Gerudo Highlands. It's just like kind of in the middle, and it's like a good starting place for whatever you want to do up here. And again, it has good farming locations. There's some good weapons nearby, luminous stone, there's ice rods, it's great. It's also the closest shrine to get to the rare talus here as well. So that's all wonderful. However, you can also go to... So I came here from Gerudo Tower, which in my opinion is the easiest method. However, there's another way to get here too that's also pretty easy. So if you're trying to figure out how to get up here and how to get to the Gerudo Tower, another way to do that is to actually come from Kuh Takkar. So an alternative method for getting to Kuh Takkar is you can start at the Shayloya or the Mijiroki Shrine and then work your way south, climbing the mountain here. It's actually a lot easier than you would think, and you can just get to Kuh Takkar very easily that way. But basically, this whole like mountainside to the south is just like, it's only steep for a little bit, and then after that, as long as you take this path right here anyways, it's pretty shallow actually. Like, you can just run the rest of the way and it's fine. So there's only a few enemies. It's basically just some wolves and then occasionally some style enemies if it's night, but other than that, there's like nothing here. So you can just run the whole way and it's fine. So you can just continue on south and then get access to Kuh Takkar. Again, you're going to need some chill resistance, but other than that, everything else is like super easy. Again, one of the things that's interesting about that is that from this location, you can easily work your way over to Gerudo Tower, and you can just, again, from here, it'll take you all the way to the top of the like Gerudo Tower spiral, so you don't have to fight through all those enemies either if you go this direction. In general, I don't think this is as easy as taking the other path that I showed earlier coming from Wasteland Tower, going along the mountainside. I think that's still better overall. However, this is another alternative if you want to come from this direction instead. So get Kuh Takkar first, and then get Gerudo Tower, and this method works pretty good as well. I think it's about time to start exploring that desert and get some warp points and then finally gain access to Gerudo Town at long last. Oh yeah, but I will be doing that in the next video. As always, huge thanks goes to all of my Patreon supporters for helping to make this possible. And if you enjoyed this and found it helpful, be sure to throw a like on it and subscribe for more content just like this. Remember to stay awesome, you have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time.